After years of searching for the perfect search engine, it's finally time for me to reveal the best and worst search engines of all time. Because these days, it can actually be pretty hard to find a really great search engine. So, if we were just talking about results, then I'm sure you know that search engines like Google are very good, but there are some big flaws with these big search engines like Bing and Google. It's that, say, a company like Google, they are an advertising company and they get all of their money from giving people targeted advertisements, and they have a financial incentive to collect as much data about you as possible in order to give you the most relevant advertisements. So they track all of your search history, they track you across the internet, they're even tracking you watching this YouTube video right now. And the more data that they can collect about you, the more relevant ads that they can give you and the more money they will make. But more and more people are waking up to the fact that this is actually really creepy. I don't want Google to know absolutely everything about me. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of things that you search are really personal and private to you. You probably tell your search engines things that you wouldn't tell your best friend. And so I want to find a search engine that gives me good search results, but also one that respects my privacy and doesn't track every single search that I ever make with it. Another issue that a lot of big search engines have is that they are very biased. So you probably know this, but if you search for anything political in something like Bing, then you are going to get the results skewed in a very Silicon Valley politics way. So if you're doing research on maybe a controversial subject, it's going to be very difficult to find results from the opposing side if you're using something like Google. And so some people want their search engine to be less biased. So I'm going to rank all of these websites right here on how good their search results are and how much of my privacy they respect. And also I'll factor in how much they're biased, how much they censor their search results. So I'm going to be ranking these from base tier, which is going to be the best of the best, all the way down to surveillance tier, which is going to be the worst of the worst, the ones that don't respect your privacy at all and collect a whole bunch of creepy data about you. So first off, let's start off with Bing. And unfortunately, Bing is everything wrong with modern search engines. So this is Bing. It's owned by Microsoft, but Microsoft respects your privacy about as much as Google does, which is not at all. So they do store all of the searches that you make with Bing in order to give you more personalized advertising, which I really don't like. Not only that, but their search results aren't even that good. It was literally a meme a while ago how bad Bing's search results are compared to Google's. And while they've improved a little bit, they're still definitely a step down from Google's. And there was also a time a few years ago, you can see some old videos or old news articles talking about this, but there was a time when Bing was less censored or less politically biased than Google. And so you could have found more diverse opinions if you were searching with Bing. But these days, the results are almost exactly the same as Google's as far as political bias goes. So if that is something that you are concerned about, then Bing is not going to help you at all. At least in recent years, they have really cracked down and it's very hard to find any differing opinions on Bing anymore. And so I really don't think that there's any redeeming qualities about Bing. Now, in this video, I'm not going to be talking about these new AI searches that a lot of these big search engines are rolling out. Like Bing is pushing the hardest for this. They basically have a version of ChatGPT 4 that you can use from your browser. I'm not really going to be discussing this in this video, because at this time, I just don't think it's really robust enough to replace traditional text searches. And so in this video, I'm not really going to be ranking these based on their AI search. Maybe in 6 months or so, AI search will completely revolutionize the industry and this video will be horribly outdated. But at least until then, I'm just going to be skipping over the AI parts. And so I'm giving Bing a final grade of surveillance tier. No thanks, I don't want to send Microsoft all of my data. Sorry. Next up is Brave Search. So this is actually a pretty new search engine. It's only been around for a couple of years and is a little bit different than a lot of entries on this list because first off, Brave is a privacy respecting search engine, so it doesn't collect any of your data, it doesn't store any of your searches, it has a very good privacy policy, so that is already very good. But Brave is different because most of these privacy respecting search engines are actually going to get their results from Bing or Google. So DuckDuckGo, for example, one of the most famous privacy-focused search engines, it actually sources almost all of its search results from Bing. But Brave is different because it actually indexes its own search results. So instead of just getting the results from a big company like Bing or Google, they get their own search results. You can see here in the sidebar, well, you can't see it right now because my face is blocking it, but they have a search results independence percentage right here. And these are all of the independent results that they got from their own index. And so 93% of the search results that you will get are from Brave's own index, independent from Bing and Google. But Brave also kind of fills in the holes with Bing and Google search results. That is the remaining 7%, I guess. So kind of intermixed with the Brave search results, you will see some Google and Bing results just to kind of round out the experience. But I think it's very respectable that they have their own index because basically all of search these days is controlled by just two companies, Bing and Google, which is not really great. So in theory, maybe you will find some different websites that you wouldn't just from a Bing or Google search. But as far as their political bias goes, you will still see a lot of the same sources that Google and Bing would refer to, basically just mainstream news outlets. So the results are not going to be that different from, say, Bing or Google. But let's actually see the results, because if the results aren't good, then all of this is for nothing. And the results are actually pretty good. So if we search for something, you can see we get pretty relevant results. And I would say that Brave search results are kind of a mix between Bing's and Google's. So I would say that they're a little bit better than Bing's, a little bit worse than Google's, but in general, they're very good. And we have some search engine niceties that you would expect, like the sidebar, some news and videos. All of that is very useful. And I personally find the results from Brave Search to be very good. I've used it full time before, and I found almost everything I was looking for. I don't have any big complaints about it. So Brave is very good on both the results and the privacy front, but if you want to, they do collect some analytics by default. You can go here to the Show More tab, and you can turn off these anonymous usage metrics. This is just some analytics. I prefer not to have anything reported back from my search engine, so I prefer to turn this off, but you can do whatever you want. A couple of other cool features that they have is they also have bangs from DuckDuckGo. So if you don't know what these are, you can search other websites by typing exclamation and then something like DDG to go to DuckDuckGo. So you can automatically jump to another website. And you might also know Brave from their web browser, but this is just their search engine and you can use it independently from their browser. And a lot of people really dislike Brave because it is an advertising company. And a lot of people are really allergic to advertising companies from companies like Google because they track you and collect all your personal data. But Brave Search has a really good privacy policy, and they're not giving you these weird, super personalized ads that know way too much about you. And so I personally think that Brave Search is a very good option. I highly recommend a lot of people to use this, and I'm going to put this straight in excellent tier. Can't really go wrong with this option. Next up, let's go over DuckDuckGo. This is probably the most famous privacy-respecting search engine out there, and I really respect them because they've done a great job of marketing their browser and basically introducing to normal people why you need to care about search engine privacy and why you might not want to trust sites like Google with all of your data. And I've even had people in real life start talking to me about DuckDuckGo, so they have done a really good job of marketing. But as I mentioned before, DuckDuckGo gets all of its search results from Bing. It's basically just a front end for Bing. And of course, there's going to be much better privacy than Bing. But to be honest, I don't really think that Bing search results are that good. And I've used DuckDuckGo before full time in the past. And to be honest, I was really disappointed with their results a lot of times. A lot of times I would search for something, and if you're just searching for something general, it's usually fine. But especially for more technical queries, and I personally do a lot of technical searches, the results end up being really subpar. And you can even search for something like this. This is a little bit ironic, but you can search for DuckDuckGo, search results poor, and even for something like this, the results are very poor. So maybe one result here is relevant, but all of the rest here, talking about the search syntax, this is just the DuckDuckGo website. This is a search engine review. Maybe one other relevant result, but the rest are just completely irrelevant to my search. It's not what I was looking for at all. And if you actually want to find something relevant, you have to keep scrolling down maybe to the second or third or fourth page. Look, I can't even find anything useful on the second page. And so what I had to do a lot of times when I was using DuckDuckGo is I had to use their bangs. And this is a feature where you can search other websites. So I can put an exclamation G and get Google search results. And as you can see, Google gives me much better results here. So more people actually talking about that DuckDuckGo's search results are bad. And when I was using DuckDuckGo full time, it seems like every other search I had to go to Google in order to actually find what I was looking for. And if you just end up going to Google to find everything, then that kind of completely defeats the point of DuckDuckGo. And so I definitely think that DuckDuckGo is good from a privacy front, but I think that a lot of people who use DuckDuckGo are going to be disappointed by the search results. Especially if you're coming from something like Google, it is going to be a major step down for a lot of people. And so that's why I don't necessarily recommend DuckDuckGo as much these days. But their privacy policy is very good. I can't really fault them for that. And they do have ads. Like a lot of these popular privacy respecting search engines have ads, but they're not going to be specifically targeted at you specifically. So they're not going to be specifically personalized to every facet of your personality. They're just going to be related to the search term. But they do partner with Bing for their ads too. So if you do see an ad in here, just don't click it, or it will send some data back to Bing, or it will send some data back to Microsoft. And of course, since they're getting all the search results from Bing, then they're subject to all of the same Bing biases. Not only that, but DuckDuckGo has been in a couple of controversies recently. Like last year, the CEO said that they're going to be downranking disinformation. And so if you're concerned about search engine bias, then you might not appreciate that. And they also had some questionable decisions in the past, like they released a web browser that actually contained Microsoft tracking. And when people found out about it, they said, well, we have to put these trackers in because Microsoft forced us to. But after a big backlash, they ended up removing them from their browser. And so there's just been a lot of questionable decisions like this made in the past by DuckDuckGo. And that's why I no longer completely trust them like I used to. So I used to think that DuckDuckGo could do no wrong, but my confidence in them is not nearly as strong these days. So that's why I don't really recommend DuckDuckGo as much. I mean, I still think they're fine for a lot of people, but you might not find the best results using DuckDuckGo, and that's why I just had to put it in the decent tier. I think it's okay. Next up, let's talk about Ecosia. So Ecosia is actually another Bing front end, so they get all of their search results from Bing, but there is a twist. So we can see right on their homepage, they are all about the environment. So they will plant trees for every search you make. Well, not every search, you probably have to search a few more times than that before they plant a tree for you. But they give a lot of their profits to planting trees, which I think is a very good and respectable mission. And so if you search for something here, then they're even going to have a little pop-up here telling you you're now on your way to plant your first tree, so you can see how many trees that you've planted in total. I think that's pretty cool. And so the results are going to be about the same as Bing, more or less. But let's talk about privacy. So Ecosia does claim to respect privacy. You can see in their privacy policy here. But at the same time, they do make some strange decisions for a search engine that claims to care about privacy. They don't store your searches permanently, but they do store it for a while. They store it for a week and only anonymize it after 1 week. I don't want them storing any searches of mine, so that is kind of weird. And they do actually send a lot of data to Microsoft, which is a little bit concerning. So you can see here that they will send to Bing your user agent string, your search term, and some settings. And with all of this data that they send back to Microsoft and Bing, it is probably possible for Microsoft to do some sort of fingerprinting on you. And so all of this just really rubs me the wrong way. And I really don't think that they care about privacy as much as they claim to. And so from a privacy perspective, I definitely don't think that this is the best choice. But let's face it, Ecosia is more of an ethical search engine than a private search engine. So if the mission really appeals to you, then I guess you can give this a try, and you can definitely do much worse than Ecosia. But I can't really recommend it for most people, and I'm just going to put it in the mediocre tier. Next up, our next guest needs no introduction. It's Google, the most popular search engine since forever. And of course, everybody knows at this point how much data that Google collects about you. I find it to be extremely creepy how much they want to know about my search history. And so I really don't recommend anyone to use Google when there are much better alternatives out there. Now, you can't deny that their search results are some of the best, but with some of the other entries on this list, you can get the same results from Google, but without all of the creepy tracking. And of course, the search results are going to be extremely politically biased and censored. So if you want to do research on anything even slightly controversial, it will be difficult to find with Google. That's why I'm putting Google straight in the surveillance tier. You all knew where it would end up, but I don't want to be under constant surveillance from Google, so I do not recommend anyone to use it. And next up, let's talk about a lesser known privacy respecting search engine called Metager. Now, Metager claims to be a search engine aggregator, so instead of just getting results from one service like Bing or Google, what they claim to do is get a whole bunch of different results from a whole bunch of different search engine indexes and kind of give you the best of the best. And they do care a lot about user privacy, so they're not going to store your search data or anything creepy like that. And so at this point, you might be thinking that Metager is great. But if we search for something here, let's search for Kirby, we can actually see where each of these results are coming from. And if you see, most of these are coming from Yahoo. So Yahoo, Yahoo, Yahoo. All of these are Yahoo. Down here, there's some more lesser known ones like Scopia or InfoTiger. But most of these are just going to be Yahoo. And as you may be able to tell, some of the most irrelevant results are from these lesser known search engines like Scopia, like Warren County Public Library. This is probably not what I'm looking for whenever I'm searching for Kirby. And you might be wondering why I don't have Yahoo in my search engine tier list. And that is because these days, Yahoo actually gets all of its results from, you might have guessed it, Bing. So Yahoo is actually just a Bing front end these days. And so by extension, that makes Metager, yet another Bing front end. So these are going to be almost all Bing search results, at least all of the relevant ones. And if we go here to the menu and we see which search engines that it's actually aggregating from, so we can see all of them. And it gets it from Yahoo, which is Bing, and Bing, which is also Bing, and then a couple of other smaller indexes, but most of the relevant results that you actually get will just be from Bing. So yes, this is just another private front end for Bing. It is nothing special. The privacy is definitely good, but the dated design is not really doing anything for me. I don't know, maybe some of you are into this retro design, but for me it is really doing nothing. And it doesn't even have a lot of nice features that you might expect from some other search engines. Like, it doesn't have a very nice Wikipedia summary. It doesn't have links to news or videos or anything in these search results. It's just a very basic list. So I don't really think that there's anything too special about this. If you want to use it, you definitely can, and there's not really going to be any issue with using it, but I can't give it anything higher than decent. I think it's fine, but it does absolutely nothing to stand out from the crowd. Next up, let's go over Mojeek. So Mojeek is another lesser known privacy search engine, but they don't get all of their results from Bing or Google. They have their own index and their own crawler that crawls all of the web pages. And so you're going to get results independent from Google and Bing. And Mojeek also cares about user privacy as well. Right on their homepage, they say that they do not track you, and their privacy policy is solid. So at this point, you might be thinking that Mojeek is great, but there must be a catch, right? And let's actually search for something here. Let's search for Kirby again. And as you can see, there are some relevant search results here. We have the Kirby CMS, Jack Kirby. But right after that, that's where the results start to get a little bit suspicious. So we have Kirby Cravings, which is apparently some San Diego dining website. We have Kirby Crackle Music. We have Kirby Professional Coaching Solutions. This is probably not what you're looking for if you're looking for Kirby. And of course, there are a few relevant search results here, but most of the time, whenever I've actually tried to use Mojeek, the results just ended up coming back completely subpar, and it was very difficult to find anything. And Kirby is a very popular search term, but you can imagine what it's going to be like if you search for something less relevant than that. The results are going to be even worse. And as much as I want to like Mojeek, as much as I respect them from trying to be independent from Google and Bing, in this case, it just really does not work. And I feel like the search results that you get here, they are just not good enough. But I guess the one compliment that I will give to Mojeek is that they are very unbiased search results. They're very uncensored. So if you want to search for some controversial topic and you search on Mojeek, you will get a complete spectrum of different opinions instead of just mainstream news outlets. So that can be useful if you are researching something, but other than that, I can't really think of any good use for Mojeek. And I definitely don't recommend most people to use it, unfortunately. And so I'm just going to put Mojeek straight into mediocre tier. Next up, let's go over Searx. Now, Searx is going to be very different than a lot of other sites on this list. And first of all, because it's not really a site. Searx is an open source project that anyone can self-host. So all of these right here are instances that people have set up for their own web server. And so all of these, some individual just set this up on their own server. And I'll leave a link to this list right here, but this is a list where you can find the best Searx instances for you, because there's not one best instance. It's probably going to depend on where you are geographically. So if you're in the US, then you probably don't want something that's halfway across the world. That's going to be a little bit slow. So you can pick one that's geographically close to you. And just for my use cases, let's pick this one right here and see how Searx actually looks. Well, first things first, we do need the dark theme. But after we have this, Searx is an aggregator of different search engines. So you can pull down search results from Bing, from Google, and from a lot of other search engines that I've talked about. You can pull down from Brave and Mojeek. And so let's just search for something and see what I mean. We can search for Kirby again, and the results will be from Google and Bing. So this one is from Google and Bing. These are from Bing. This one is from Google. And so instead of being limited to one search engine, you can kind of get the best of both worlds here. And so I have Bing and Google enabled right here. And I find that the search results are very good. I almost always find what I'm looking for. And you can even toggle on more of these inside preferences. So you can go into engines and toggle on all of the ones that you want. You can get search results from DuckDuckGo and Brave and any other ones down here. But I will give you a warning that a lot of these will not work. So as you can see, Mojeek has a 20% reliability. And so most of the time that you try to use Mojeek, it will just not load and say that it couldn't pull in results from Mojeek. And they are kind of at the mercy of some of these search engine servers. And so if Mojeek doesn't want to work with them, then they're not going to be able to get Mojeek results. And so you're not going to be able to get results from every single search engine. And the more that you turn on, the slower that it will actually take to process your search. But you can definitely turn on a few of these and see the results from there. And not only can you do this for search engines, you can also do this for images. So instead of just Google images, you can get Qwant images, Bing images, DuckDuckGo, and save all of these down here. Now we can search for something. And as you can see, we are pulling in from DuckDuckGo and even more sources. So it's definitely very cool. And there are a ton of different search engines that you can pull in here. So one's for videos. You can pull from different search engines. You can search specifically for IT websites. So this will search things like Stack Overflow, GitHub. You can search science and files in order to use specific search engines. And I encourage you to just come in here and see all the search engines, toggle some of them on, see which ones you like. And I find the search results to be some of the best, even better than Google, because you get all of Google's search results plus results from other search engines. And as far as privacy goes, it is very privacy respecting. And it's actually open source, so if you want to, you can go in and view the source code and see that it's not doing anything malicious. But there is one issue, and that's that you kind of have to trust these individuals who are hosting this web server. So instead of being run by a giant company, it's just being run by, I guess, different people on the internet, which you may prefer instead of trusting a giant company. But you have to trust them that they didn't put anything nefarious in here. But you can verify here that they're using all of the scripts just from the open source GitHub repository. They're not putting anything else in here. And if you are paranoid, then you can completely disable JavaScript, and it's going to be much harder to collect information about you if there's no JavaScript loading. And without JavaScript, it will still work. And so for most practical purposes, you can trust these, that nothing nefarious is going on. But if you really want absolute most privacy, you can self-host this. There are instructions to set this up on your own web server if you want. That's probably overkill for most people, but it is an option if you want. So I highly recommend using Searx. I think it is one of the best search engines out there, and that's why I'm putting it in base tier. Next up, let's go over Startpage. So Startpage is another privacy respecting front end for another search engine, but instead of getting Bing results, Startpage gets results from Google. And so I actually prefer the results a lot more than something like DuckDuckGo, because the results are from Google, and the results are just going to be much better when you're searching for something technical, because Google's results are very good. I guess that is one benefit of harvesting everyone's data. But if you search for something here, you're going to get very relevant results. So these are results from Google. Nothing too fancy here, but you have some niceties like this sidebar. You have images, video, and news. And the privacy policy is very solid. They do a really great job of protecting you from Google trackers. and so I can highly recommend them from a privacy perspective. Of course, they are going to have the same biases that Google has, because these are, after all, just Google search results. But I'd say for most queries, that is probably fine. Most of what I use a search engine for these days now is just for technical queries, and so for that purpose, it's totally fine. They also have this feature that you might like called Anonymous View. And so if you just want to take a peek at a website, you can go into this kind of proxy that they give you. And so this website can't load any cookies or anything, no tracking scripts. And so if you want to go into a website, but you don't want to get all the tracking, you can kind of go through this proxy. I think that's kind of a cool feature. I don't really use it that often, but it is something that you might be interested in. And the only reason that a lot of people really do not like Startpage is because Startpage was actually bought by an advertising company a few years ago. It was bought by this company called System 1. And we can go here and see what this is all about. And I actually talked about this in another video I had on browsers, because this company also bought a popular privacy browser. And at the time, people were freaking out. They were saying, this is the end of Startpage and WaterFox. That was the browser that they acquired. But that was a few years ago, and nothing has really changed in regards to Startpage's privacy policy or anything like that. So they are an advertising company, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to track you and give you creepy targeted advertising like big sites like Google do. And so I don't really see a problem with this. The privacy policy here is completely different than Startpage's privacy policy. And they haven't introduced anything weird into the privacy policy, so I don't see anything wrong with using Startpage. But I can definitely understand why some people might be apprehensive having a search engine controlled by an advertising company. That might raise some red flags, I guess, but for me, I don't really care. And that's why I think that Startpage is a very good search engine, and I am putting it straight into excellent. Next up is Swisscows. So this is another privacy-respecting Bing front end. Yes, another one of these, but with another small twist. So this is a family-friendly search engine, and so you're not going to see anything degenerate on here. So that means that they're going to block all adult content. So you're not going to find any pornography here, and you're also not going to find any violence on here. So I guess this is a good Christian search engine, and they're going to block a lot of content here, so violent or even pornographic content is already blocked here in advance. So for most people, this probably isn't going to be for you, but if you want a family-friendly search engine that your kids can use, I guess this is a good idea. But besides that gimmick, I really don't see that much reason to use this over something else. There are other search engines like this that do it better, but I guess this does also include something like the Anonymous View feature from Startpage, which might be cool, I guess. And you are just going to get Bing search results. As far as privacy goes, it is pretty good. Maybe they have a couple of weird decisions here, like they do collect your search data, but they anonymize it after 7 days. So I don't really like that. But they don't really send anything personal to Microsoft. And I guess one of their other claims to fame is that they're from Switzerland, which is a very privacy-friendly country. And so that might be something that you're interested in. But for the most part, this is basically just your run-of-the-mill Bing privacy front end. So use it if you like, but I'm just going to put this in decent tier. And next up is Qwant, and I promise this is going to be the very last Bing privacy front end. Yes, Qwant is another search engine that gets all of their results from Bing, and they've actually claimed in the past to be working on their own crawler, on their own indexer, so that they can get results independent from Bing, but at least from what I was able to tell, they haven't really made any progress on that, and so 99% of your search results are still going to be from Bing. So there's that. The search results are going to be exactly what you would expect. And I guess the design is kind of like Google, if for some reason you like that. But there's not really too much to say here. You can see their privacy policy here, and there are a couple of questionable choices in here. You can see here that your IP address and your user agent is sent to Microsoft, but not your search terms. So it's probably fine. They're not perfect, but I really don't think it's too bad. So you can use Qwant if you want. I just think that it is another unremarkable privacy front end for Bing. There's nothing special here. I guess the only special thing here is that it is a French company. That's why it's giving me something here that I can't read. But Qwant isn't even available in all countries. And Qwant also said that they're going to remove disinformation from their search results, the same as DuckDuckGo. So that might be another reason why you don't want to use them. I think they're definitely fine, but nothing special about them, so I'm just putting them in the decent tier. At this point, I might as well just name this the Bing tier. This is basically all of the Bing front ends. Pick your favorite one here. But next up we have Whoogle. I find this one kind of funny because it sounds like one of those fake Google knockoffs that you would see in an anime. And Whoogle is similar to Searx in that it is open source and self-hosted, so you can see all of these people here have their own instance of it. But Whoogle is just another front end for Google, and so as you can expect, you would type something in here and you will get Google search results. And so you can see it here. Maybe the UI is not quite as nice as some other ones, but I think it is still fine. And with Google, you can't really beat their image search. So you can find images here, there are some settings here, and you can pick your favorite instance, or of course you can self-host your own. But that's Whoogle for you. It's nothing too original, but if you want another Google front end tryout, you can check this one out. But I'm putting this in excellent tier. I think that is another very good option. And last but not least, let's do Yandex. So you might know Yandex as the Russian Google. That's basically what it is. It is Russia's biggest search engine. And I don't know why, but a lot of people really simp for this search engine. But it has all of the same problems that Bing and Google does. It is going to collect all of your user data and use it for targeted advertisements. And it's probably even going to send your data to the Russian government or something nefarious like that. But I guess some people like this because it's not in the US. And I guess if you do live in the US, then Bing and Google can probably do worse to you than Yandex could, because Yandex is halfway across the world. So there's not really too much that they can directly do to harm you. But I still don't really recommend anyone to use this. I guess the couple of nice things that I will say about Yandex is that it is very unbiased. So if you search for something in Yandex, you will get very different results than American-based search engines. If you search for some controversial opinion, at least controversial in the West, then you will get a very unbiased look at everything. Some people also really like their reverse image search because, as far as I know, there aren't any good reverse image searches on any private search engine. And if you have to reverse image search an image, then it might be best to use the search engine that is as far away from your location as possible. I guess so. But of course, I still can't really recommend this to anyone. There is just as much surveillance in here as something like Google and Bing. So I guess if you want to use it for those specific use cases, you can. But for everything else, I am putting this straight into surveillance tier. It's just Russian state surveillance instead of American surveillance. And so that is my tier list of every single search engine out there. And if you want my recommendation, then I do have to say that Searx is probably the best of the best. But most normal people would probably want to use something like Brave Search or Startpage. Those are both very good options that are both easy to use and have very good results while not compromising on your privacy. And if one of these other ones really speaks to you, then you can go ahead and use that. Nothing wrong with that. But I actually recommend you not just use one of these, but use maybe 2 or 3 of these at the same time. So I use Searx most of the time, but if I'm looking for something, I will also cross-reference it with Brave Search, or maybe I will use Brave for their image search. I feel that it is better than Searx sometimes. So don't just limit yourself to one search engine. If you think it's useful or you can't find what you're looking for, then use multiple search engines. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people are under the impression that there needs to be one search engine to rule them all, but you can use multiple of them. Nothing wrong with that. So that's my recommendation to you. If you like this video, then I have another similar one ranking web browsers. But hopefully you learned something in this video, and if there's one thing you learned, then just stop using Google. It's not worth it.